Neopian lore, what we got in store. Talking about the things that we love and adore. We're all over 20, right? We're saying doors. So play this game. Love this game. Sometimes hate this game. But let's all talk about Neopian lore. Yeah! Woohoo!
Hello everyone, this is episode 2 of Neopian Lore. All information has been pulled from the Neopets website and other official fan sites. I'll try to be as accurate as possible and attempt to pronounce the names correctly, but this is the fictional world of Neopia and just for fun. I'm your host, a sad 20-something-year-old Krista Poyman. Let's cozy up to some nostalgia. Today we are going to talk about Dr. Death. Mwahaha. There is a fantastic podcast on a former neurosurgeon with the same nickname for gross malpractice resulting in the death and maiming of 33 patients. But we don't talk about the real world on this podcast, so let's stick to the Neopian version. You stand in front of 3 doors. A bright pink flowery door to your left with a sign reading Adopt, a metal door erected in the center with the words engraved Transfer, and to your right, dark blue door that has seen better days. Cobwebs reside in the corners, and a rugged brown taped-on sign says, Abandon. You head towards the direction of the blue door, and in the shadows, you see glowing yellow eyes and a silhouette of a techo. As you inch closer, you see his skin is yellow with orange spots, white hair jutting from his scowling head, and he wears gray pants and shirt under a white lab coat. You look at your Neopet, and for whatever reason, decide to leave them. You hear their cries, throw me away, get rid of me, leave me to die. After telling the techo 5 times this is your choice, you begin to walk away, one less pet in tow. Dr. Death, also known as Dr._Death, is a yellow techo and one of the keepers of the Neopian Pound. He wasn't always mean or cruel. As a young boy, Dr. Death had an unusual interest in caring for animals. He would take home injured puppy blues, nurse them back to full health, and then find good homes for them all. He was hired at the pound after years of medical training, but after seeing hundreds of Neopets left at the pound, he became jaded and becomes upset when he hears there's a new pet abandoned. Some were left because they were too playful, others because their owners couldn't feed them. Even worse, some were dumped simply because a new type of pet came along. His Neopedia article says he hopes to be anything but a vet. In real-world history, an animal pound was a place where stray livestock was impounded. Animals were kept in a dedicated enclosure until claimed by their owners or sold to cover the cost of the impounding. The modern pound or shelter was first created by Caroline Earl White, co-founder of the Pennsylvania Society for the Prevention of Cruelty of Animals in 1867. She started the first U.S. animal shelter in 1869, the Women's Humane Society, along with a group of 30 female animal activists. As a child, White often witnessed drivers beating their exhausted horses as they labored under heavy freight down Philadelphian streets. Later, she recalled how such sights depressed and troubled her that she could no longer walk down certain streets. They initially started with horses and transitioned to canines and felines, as well as advocating against rooster and dog fights, fox hunts, and animal baiting, where an animal is tethered for others to attack it, which just breaks my heart. The mission was to ensure animals were treated with kindness and respect. The shelter also employed 3 cruelty officers, men authorized to prevent and punish animal abuse, which sounds like a pretty kick donkey butt job. This shelter is still active today, but obviously modernized. The Neopian Pound was initially released on June 30th, 2000, shortly after the opening of the website. The pound at the time was run by a scary character named Miss Swirly, a stout red-headed lady with bright purple lipstick. She was kind of creepy, so it makes sense she wasn't married. Soon after, though, it was replaced with the smiling Dr. Death, alongside an also jovial pink uni. Signs below them read, Adopt today, and Don't disown your poor Neopets. It was also renamed to the Neopian Adoption Center. In 2003, the Dr. Death avatar was released, picturing him scowling and his name flashing in red. Don't worry, though. You just have to visit the abandoned page, not actually disown a pet. So please don't abandon Mittens_loves_Harry Styles 1267_XXXXX. He loves you so much. The pound is closed until further notice. Dr. Death is retiring. While a replacement has not been found yet, candidate applications for the position of pound director are currently being accepted from influential Neopets. The pound is no longer accepting abandonments. We have launched this program to foster out Neopets currently in the system during this transitional period. You may be volunteered to take in some of these Neopets if your username is selected. The Pound Council trusts that Neopians who are given foster Neopets will take charge of their care and feeding. On April 1st, 2014, Dr. Death decided to retire as Pound Director. When Neopians headed to the Pound, they were greeted with a close sign, stating that they were currently looking for a new Pound Director. By a random event, some Neopians fostered actual pets from the Pound, some way over the allotted pet limit as the day went on. I know a lot of people would be happy with that. You could feed and play with them, but were unable to paint or customize them. You could use morphing potions, though. A contest was held later in the day to choose the next Pound Director, the first being a green techo sporting pirate gear and bulging eyes, Bug-Eye McGee. Hey, you think running a pound is hard? Try extracting treasure from a pirate sometime. The vampiric Halloween bloomeroo Count Von Roo. I have studied prison colonies throughout this century. I believe the key to the problem is to remove sanguine humor in the system. A green growl sporting a pink dress and matching hat, Rosie. From now on, we'll call it the Rehoming and Transition Station. Oh, I'm off to give a hug to each and every one of the darlings. And lastly, the large gray and yellow robot, Kralodin Defender Robot. All other candidates will be destroyed using the latest upgrades to Virtutech. Our master will be pleased with this acquisition of new labor for his schemes. The Defender Robot did not, in fact, destroy the other candidates. Instead, Rosie became the overseer of the Neopian Pound Neoboard, giving a warm, friendly face to the chaos and black hole that is the Pound boards. And I can say that because I used to frequent them quite often, and maybe still do. In 2007, 7 years before the prank, the Pound closed for slightly over a year. When it reopened, a new transfer feature was added, as well as a revamp of the Pound. This let users trade Neopets with other players, as well as move pets around. Back in my day, it was the Wild West. People would abandon and then readopt their pets by coordinating their clocks. It was a simpler time. In all seriousness, though, it made things much more streamlined and less pets were lost in the process. In the early days, one scam that was common, though, was the trade and run scam. Both people would agree to trade pets, but the scammer has you send the pet first. After receiving the pet, the scammer ghosts, sometimes self-freezing so the evidence of the chat board was destroyed and then unfreeze later. Since transferring was so new and many players were young, in like elementary or middle school, they were unfamiliar with the user-to-user trade. Instead of a desk with the Techo and Uni, you were greeted with 3 doors: adopt, transfer, and abandon. We see the return of the pink Uni, that some in the Neopian Times articles have nicknamed Rose. We also saw a shift in our Techo. Instead of a kind smile, he looks more malevolent, his hands rubbing together as if plotting something. Is this when our doctor truly broke and lost his passion for adopting out Neopets? I wonder. With this shift in management, we now have a robot Hissy overseeing transfers. Robots, as well as snakes, have the stereotype of unfeeling and lack of emotion. Then why wouldn't he take over the Pound instead of transfers? If Death is so burnt out from the Pound, why doesn't he let the Hissy take over the abandonment section? Perhaps he feels that a Neopian face eases the transition for the poor pets that end up in the Pound. Transferring a pet doesn't bring as much trauma as the act of abandonment does. So I tried to do some digging into the doctor's credentials. It states he had years of medical training before taking his current position. First, I checked out the Neo School, but it all seemed like your prerequisites. I could see him taking starting science with Mr. Noakes, but that wouldn't be nearly enough to get a medical license. The only medical school I could find that was canon was the Jub Jub Medical School, found in the description of the Jub Jub lab coat. Could this be where he attended? Was it just founded by Jub-Jubs, or must you be a Jub-Jub to attend? Now, there is a Neopian Times article by Cadet Bush entitled Sending Your Neopets to School. On the list, there are 2 schools that have medical courses, the Shenku Seminary and the Neopia Central School. Then again, I wasn't able to find records on either of these schools. I then investigated the Neopian Hospital. Perhaps he did his clinical hours there. There, a blue galert sporting a doctor's coat helping a Kachik is displayed. But the hospital doesn't provide actual treatment, only gives you a list of your sickness, the treatment, and then refers you to the pharmacy. This seems like an oversight. What if there's a legitimate concern outside the standard scope of practice? Is there only over-the-counter medicine? It should also be noted that none of the Neopets require a script to purchase treatments from the pharmacy. Many users sell these in their personal shops. Who's to say it hadn't been tampered with or is counterfeit? Sounds like a lawsuit and malpractice to me. But going back to Death's Neopedia page, it states that he hopes to be anything but a vet. Perhaps he sees the major flaws in the system and wants to partake in in-person care. It seems initially he had good bedside manner, but that seems to have been lost over the years. Then again, seeing Neopets in the pound for years on end, pets to be adopted simply to be abandoned again, whether it be for an avatar or attached pet, it would do a number on someone. So it begs the question, what happens in Neopia if there's an outbreak? Well, in 2001, there was an outbreak of itchy scratchies at the Money Tree. Any pets which visited had a high chance of being infected. The epidemic was brought under control later the same day, and the water fairy from the Healing Springs offered to cure those she could. No mention of doctors and nurses, just the water fairy. On April Fool's Day 2011, the Scourges pandemic was released. The pharmacy released information about how many Neopets started to have fungus growing all over them, as well as itchiness, dizziness, and muscle aches. Cures could be distributed to Neopets from users at the hospital. You could cure someone else's pet, but not your own, leading to lots of boards created solely for the purpose of helping pets. You chose to douse a pet in soup, slorgs, ice, splints, or blue goo. But again, users had to help each other. Physicians were nowhere to be seen. This seems like a major oversight on the system. Was Dr. Death pushed out of the medical industry, or did he leave voluntarily? Am I reading too much into this? Yes, I am. Now, Dr. Death did find the time to write a biography, but as I am not a Neopet, I am unable to read it and give you more information. He is featured in 2 other novels, the first being Little Wings, Big Feet, a cute tale about one little elefante who started life in the pound under the care of Dr. Death back in 2003, where it seems the doctor still really cares, and then a later novel in 2020 called The Lonely Jub-Jub. The young Jub-Jub sat shivering in the back of his cage. He had been in the pound so long, he began to wonder if even Dr. Death had forgotten him. A good piece of evidence to show his shift in caring. Dr. Death was also a candidate for the Best Smile category during the first ever Neopies in 2008. He lost to Rufus, who was the current Grand Bogan of whatever, with 49% of the vote. Dr. Death also has his own plushie awarded during the Advent calendar during year 4, but 2 years later, a headless Dr. Death plushie was released, ironically worth double its counterpart. Looks like someone either was playing too rough or had a vendetta against him. If you want to make a lot of quick Neo points, just buy up a bunch of Dr. Death plushies and rip off their heads and resell them. Sounds like a great investment to me. In the pet battles, he uses a level 10 spider named Daphne, a major shift from the lovable Puppy Blue. Now on his door at the pound, there are cobwebs in the corner. So he either saw the cobwebs and decided to adopt the spider, or he adopted this little guy and now he likes to spook people to deter them away from abandoning their pets. I like the idea of him trying to spook Neopians away, maybe doing ghost sounds behind the door, playing organ music as his pet spider comes down on your hair. My last question is on Dr. Death's name. Was this his original name, destined to become a self-fulfilling prophecy? Did someone else give him the name due to his position? It seems cruel since he's not the one abandoning the pets. My theory is that he gave himself the name to deter Neopians from abandoning their pets. I believe it's a persona, the malicious look in his eye, the creepy aesthetics, and the name to send shivers down your spine. It's all an act to deter Neopians from leaving their pets, that behind the scenes, he is still the caring, puppy blue-loving doctor. Dr. Death will occasionally appear in a random event, urging you to adopt a specific pet. Cue, in the arms of an angel. So perhaps there is still some humanity left in him. Neopian-y? Neopian-y? So if you have a moment and an extra pet slot, why don't you head to the pound and see if you can make a new friend? Well, that's it for today. All character license belongs to neopets.com. Music was created by me, Krista. Welcome to the Neopian Pound. This is where kind-hearted souls can find the perfect Neopet for themselves, often far smarter and much better behaved than the younger Neopets. Cruel, irresponsible owners can abandon their unwanted Neopets and hope that someone will eventually come along and care for them.